All right, good afternoon. Welcome back to me. Happy to be back with you. Just a programming note, 3 p.m. today in the chamber of the Economic and Social Council, the Secretary-General will deliver remarks on the launch of the Muscat Plan of Action, which, for those of you who don't know what the Muscat Plan of Action is, it is an initiative aimed at countering hate speech and help prevent genocide and atrocity crimes. The plan highlights the role of traditional and indigenous peoples in promoting peace and strengthening social cohesion. It is a result of collaborative process led by the Sultanate of Oman, the UN Office on Genocide Prevention and the Responsibility to Protect, and the Network for Religious and Traditional Peacemakers, and is being co-hosted by the Alliance of Civilizations. In his remarks, the Secretary-General is expected to stress that hate speech is a growing threat to peace and security, and to call for breaking this cycle through education, support for those targeted, and stronger action by governments and technology companies. Turning to the situation in the Middle East, the Secretary-General is deeply concerned by the continuing escalation in the Middle East, including by strikes by the United States on Iran and the strikes by Iran on neighboring countries in the Gulf and beyond that are not parties to the conflict, and significant increase hostile rhetoric. He urges the parties to return to the full implementation of the ceasefire to avoid any further deterioration, which, as he told the Security Council yesterday, could trigger a full resumption of the conflict with unpredictable consequences for the region and the world, especially for those in the most vulnerable countries. The Secretary-General underscores that the exercise of navigational rights and freedoms in accordance with international law must be respected. He further calls on all parties to uphold their obligations under international law and to take all feasible precautions to protect civilians. He reiterates that the only way forward is through genuine dialogue and negotiations. He calls on the United States and Iran to redouble efforts towards a peaceful, comprehensive, and durable agreement that advances regional and international peace and security. Turning to the situation along the Blue Line in southern Lebanon, this morning a strike impacted near a UNIFIL logistical convoy in the village of Haris, which is in Sector West. 2 of our Malaysian peacekeeper colleagues were injured, thankfully only light injuries, and 2 of their vehicles were damaged. The convoy was able to return to a nearby UNIFIL base where the injured peacekeepers are receiving treatment. Their condition is stable, we are told, and UNIFIL will investigate the nature of the incident. In separate incident yesterday, an IDF tank fired near a UNIFIL convoy northwest of Bint Jubail in Sector West. The convoy took a detour and was able to safely resume its movements. UNIFIL peacekeepers also observed significant drone activity in the Bayada area in Sector West yesterday. 7 drones were seen flying north, including a reconnaissance type drone that overflew UNIFIL position, followed by 4 armed drones that flew over the same UNIFIL base at altitudes ranging from 50 to 250 meters. 2 armed drones subsequently crashed in the area, one of them directly in front of the UNIFIL position. No damage to UN facilities and no injuries to our personnel. All of these incidents are unacceptable. We once again remind all actors of the inviolability of UN personnel and UN assets. UNIFIL is serving the cause of peace and must be able to carry out its mandate given to it by the Security Council without harassment or obstruction. Meanwhile, UNIFIL peacekeepers yesterday recorded 86 violations of Lebanese airspace by Israel, amounting to more than 128 hours of overflight. They also reported 14 Israeli airstrikes, along extensive ground movements and dozens of incidents of indirect fire within the area. In total, UNIFIL recorded 449 projectile trajectories yesterday. Of these, 431 originated from south of the Blue Line, or from within the area of operations in south of Lebanon. 18 trajectories were observed transiting from north to south, with only 1 actually crossing the Blue Line. On the humanitarian front, UNIFIL facilitated 9 humanitarian missions yesterday, 8 to Tyre in Sector West and 1 to Fardis and Hasbaya in Sector East. Turning to the situation in the occupied Palestinian territory, and this time I will lead and focus on the occupied West Bank, where our colleagues at the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs inform us that the number of settler attacks causing casualties or property damage this year in the West Bank has now surpassed 1,000. These attacks have affected more than 230 communities across all parts of the West Bank. More than 2,200 Palestinians have been displaced this year due to settler violence or other access restrictions, alongside hundreds more who've been displaced due to home demolitions by Israeli authorities. Just last week, settler attacks resulted in the injury of more than 30 Palestinians and widespread damage to property, essential infrastructure, as well as livelihoods. The current pace of settler attacks causing casualties or property damage, an average of 6 incidents per day, is higher than any year on record. Meanwhile, our partners on the ground are supporting people in need, especially in Area C, East Jerusalem, and other areas where Palestinian authorities are not allowed to provide basic services directly. And the latest report by the World Food Program indicates that more than 300,000 people across the West Bank received food and cash assistance in May. On the health front, our partners helping deliver essential services through a network of 870 service points, including 230 locations that they reach with mobile clinics. They warn that some health facilities in the West Bank have had to reduce their operating days, working hours, because of the shortage of operational capacity, medicines, medical supplies, and consumables, as well as because of access restrictions. Turning to Gaza, our Mine Action colleagues there say that in the first week of June, they conducted 50 assessments of explosive hazards. Through these assessments, they supported the removal of debris and other humanitarian efforts. They're also raising awareness, especially among children who are often the victims of unexploded ordnance, and also of adults, of risks associated with explosive ordnance and how to avoid those risks. On nutrition, partners say that in May, they screened more than 77,000 children between the ages of 6 and 59 months. More than 4% of them were identified with acute malnutrition, and they were admitted to treatment. Over 53,000 pregnant and breastfeeding women who were also screened in May, just over 3% were admitted for treatment. And turning to Sudan, where the situation there remains challenging, to say the least, for our humanitarian colleagues, who tell us that aid deliveries continue in several parts of the country despite ongoing access restrictions there as well. In South Kordofan State, UNICEF delivered life-saving health, nutrition, water, sanitation, hygiene supplies this week to the towns of Dilling and Kadugli. Delivered via an 8-truck convoy, the assistance is expected to support nearly 39,000 people who've been largely cut off from humanitarian aid due to the ongoing fighting between the RSF and the government. Meanwhile, in Blue Nile State, the World Food Program and its partners have distributed food rations to some 25,000 displaced people near the state capital, Damazin. In the same time, violence continues to impact civilians and to hinder humanitarian operations. Yesterday alone, a drone strike in the North Kordofan capital of El Obeid reportedly killed at least 4 civilians and injured several others. In Dilling, in South Kordofan State, a vehicle was reportedly struck by a drone, resulting in 2 deaths, and we continue to condemn all deaths of civilians in this conflict and others. We reiterate our call on the parties to protect civilians and civilian infrastructure and to facilitate the rapid, safe, and unhindered and sustained delivery of humanitarian assistance. Quick update from our UN team in Uganda on Ebola, where our colleagues are supporting the national response to the Ebola outbreak. UNICEF, IOM, UNHCR are assisting with risk communications, border screening, surveillance, and services in refugee settings, while the World Food Program has transported 33 metric tons of relief supplies to Bunia in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. And our team and our UN team and humanitarian partners are appealing for $15.8 million to support Uganda's Ebola response through August, while $3.1 million has been mobilized. A funding gap of $12.7 million remains. Earlier this week, also, Dr. Tedros was in Uganda, where he met with government officials and UN partners, and he, of course, reaffirmed WHO's commitment to the work to fight Ebola. Today, our friend Volker Turk, the High Commissioner for Human Rights, launched the Global Alliance for Human Rights to mobilize people from all sectors, regions, and generations, and to inspire hope, strengthen collaboration, and generate collective action for human rights. Anchored in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and building towards its 80th anniversary in 2028, the Global Alliance aims to drive measurable change through 4 strategic pathways: human rights at home, in action, in mind, and for the future. These pathways reflect a simple premise: human rights must be lived locally, defended in moments of risk, understood and trusted by people, and embedded in future-facing solutions and supported by resilient institutions and sustainable resources. There's more information online and from our human rights colleagues. Also, I want to flag that UNHCR launched its Global Trends Report today, showing that global forced displacement has decreased for the first time in a decade while remaining unacceptably high. Overall, the data show that total global refugee numbers declined by in 2025 by 3% to 41.6 million. In 2025, 5.4 million human beings escaped violence, persecution by fleeing to other countries. The report showed that returns are also gathering pace. 14.7 million people displaced returned to their areas of countries of origins in 2025, with a sharp increase in Afghanistan, Sudan, and Syria. Refugee returns were second highest on record since records began 60 years ago, though UNHCR stresses that many of these returns were done under pressure and under very precarious conditions at home. With 70% of refugees trapped in exile for years and many living below the poverty line, Barnam Saleh, the High Commissioner for Refugees, urged the international community to back new initiatives to lift millions out of long-term displacement and reliance on humanitarian aid. He outlined a clear and measurable goal to reduce by more than half over the next decade the number of refugees in long-term displacement reliant on humanitarian assistance, improving prospects for millions of people. And our friend at WFP announced today that Danish chef Rasmus Munk as its newest goodwill ambassador, and he's the first from the Nordic countries. He is the founder of the two Michelin star of a Michelin star with of a restaurant with 2 Michelin stars. There we go, called The Alchemist, and the global food research center called Spora. In his role, he will bring this globally recognized culinary artistry and experimental approach to help spotlight WFP's work, saving lives and combating global hunger, using food as a powerful medium for awareness and engagement. And also today is the International Day of, it's a good one. Play.
Play Day.
Yes,
Play.
it's exactly, good one, Evelyn. It's the International Day of Play. On this occasion and on the opening day of the FIFA World Cup, UNICEF announced the appointment of Lamine Yamal, 18-year-old star of FC Barcelona and the Spanish national team, as its newest goodwill ambassador. One of the youngest ambassadors in UNICEF's history, he will use his platform to champion every child's right to play. We have a quiz today. It's a good one. When U.S. President Abraham Lincoln recognized this country's independence in 1861, the country made him an honorary citizen. His statue remains proudly displayed in the Parliament building of this country. Our quizmaster did himself. I'll give you another hint. It is one of only 3 diarchies in the world. Anyone know what a diarchy is? A diarchy is a country that has 2 heads of states, 2 co-rulers. There are 3 of them in the world. One already paid its dues. The second one is paying its dues today. San Marino. San Marino is ruled by 2 captain regents. So we thank the captain regents, and we thank San Marino for sending us a check for $64,029. Every cent counts. And tomorrow my guest will be Anjali Ashrakar, who is the Assistant Secretary-General from UNAIDS, to talk about the latest UNAIDS report. I'm done quizzing you. Edie, you may quiz me if you so wish.
Thanks, Steph. This is the second major statement by the Secretary General in 2 days on the escalating possibilities in Iran. Who has he been talking to try and tamp things down?
I haven't had a chance to talk to him about phone calls today. I can tell you that Jean Arnaud, his special envoy, is continuing his travels. He's in Paris today and tomorrow. Then he'll go on to Geneva with meetings with various delegations.
And having mentioned Jean Arnaud, we have never gotten to speak to him since he has taken this job. When are we going to get a chance?
Why don't we try to
talk
get him when he's back on these shores? Gabriel.
Thanks, Steph. Just an update on the Strait of Hormuz. Is it safe to assume the UN is still not able to get any sort of aid through there in any way?
No, I mean, it is not. I mean, we know from scene reports some ships have been able to get through. We also know that there's been some ships that have been hit, notably the Setebello tanker that was hit, and a number of Indian seafarers were killed, and that is an attack that was clearly condemned by the Secretary-General of the International Maritime Organization, and we fully support and second that language.
And on, I know you normally don't like to comment about things that have not happened yet. However, here comes the but. The President of the United States said in social media post that the U.S. will take control of Karg Island in Iran and also take control of all of Iran's oil and gas facilities. How does the Secretary General view this verbal threat in the context of the current situation?
Well, obviously, it's not something we'd like to see. We want things to go the opposite way, more towards diplomacy than further destruction. And I think, as the Secretary General mentioned in the statement that I read, he's also very much concerned by the increased significance in hostile rhetoric that we've seen the last 2 days. Volodymyr, then Amélie.
Thank you, Stéphane. Yesterday, Mr. Nebenzia attempted to defend the Russian military, which has been included on the UN's list of shameful conflict-related sexual violence, and accused the Secretary-General of bias. This appears to reflect not only Mr. Nebenzia's position, but that of the Kremlin more broadly. What is your response to these claims?
Look, it's not for me to provide color commentary or analysis of what the ambassador says. The Secretary General issued his report, which he, of course, stands by, and which we feel is filled with verifiable data. Amélie, AFP.
Thanks, Steph. Completely different topic. The U.S. agency NOAA this morning announced that El Nino has started, and all scientists expect that it's going to be one of the strongest in history. Any thought from the Secretary General on the perspective of what's going to happen?
Well, I mean, I think we saw the most recent month of May being the hottest, one of the hottest on records. We continue to see the devastating impact of storms and different weather patterns. And I think all of what we see happening just reinforces the Secretary General's points that he's been making over years about the need for real and measurable and verifiable climate action. Okay, Islam.
Thank you, Stefan. About the special envoy John Arnold visit to Washington, D.C., you mentioned a few days ago. We didn't get any details about how his meetings went, and especially coincidentally now the tension increased in the region. So should we read it sort of, it didn't go
Well, I mean,
good?
Mr. Arnault was well received. I would hate for anyone to make a link with the increased violence and rhetoric that we've seen in the last 2 days with his visit. This is part of his ongoing travels and ongoing dialogue with various parties who are either directly or indirectly involved in this conflict. Okay, thank you all. Wishing you a very happy day, and we'll wish you a good weekend tomorrow.